It was a sunny afternoon when I first sensed something was wrong. For weeks, my husband had been behaving oddly, and I couldn't pinpoint why. He seemed distant, constantly engrossed in his phone, and whenever I asked him about it, he'd dismiss my concerns with vague excuses. We'd been married for 8 years and, like any couple, had our ups and downs, but we always found our way back to each other. This time, however, felt different. It was as if a wall had formed between us. Initially, I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. Both of us were busy with work, and perhaps that was the reason. But deep down, I knew better. There were too many signs I couldn't ignore. Late-night texts, sudden secretive behavior, and a noticeable decline in our intimacy. Our once passionate relationship had nearly faded. Nights that used to be filled with warmth and closeness were now cold and silent. One evening, as we watched TV together, I saw him texting again. I couldn't hold back any longer. "Who are you texting so much?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my heart was racing. "It's just work stuff," he replied quickly, not even looking up from his phone. "Work stuff?" At this time, I pressed, hoping he'd look at me, hoping he'd reassure me as he used to. But he didn't. Instead, he sighed and said, "Yeah, we're launching a new project. It's nothing. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. That night, after he fell asleep, I lay in bed wide awake, my mind racing with thoughts of what could be happening. I knew I had to find out the truth, even though a part of me was terrified of what I might discover. The next day, while he was in the shower, I grabbed his phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through his messages. At first, everything seemed normal. There were texts from colleagues, friends, and family. But then I found it. A string of messages from someone named Rachel. I didn't know any Rachel. My heart sank as I opened the conversation. What I saw confirmed my worst fears. The messages were flirtatious, filled with inside jokes, and more than that, they were intimate. He had been seeing her behind my back. The texts painted a clear picture of their affair, and it had been going on for months. What broke me even more was realizing that he hadn't kept it a secret just between them. He had been sharing details of their affair with one of his closest friends, Mike. There were messages between him and Mike, talking about Rachel, laughing about their rendezvous, and even discussing things they had done together. It was as if my marriage, my trust, had become a joke between them. I sat there, paralyzed with disbelief. The man I loved, the man I had shared my life with, had not only betrayed me with another woman but had also mocked our relationship with his friend. I felt numb, like the air had been sucked out of the room. My world was crumbling around me, and I didn't know what to do next. For a while, I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of what I had just uncovered. I felt anger welling up inside me, but at the same time, a deep sadness took over. How could he do this to me? How could he share something so intimate, something that was supposed to be ours, with another woman and laugh about it with his friend? When he came out of the shower, I didn't confront him right away. I was too shaken, too overwhelmed. Instead, I quietly put his phone back and pretended everything was normal. Though inside, I was screaming. I needed time to think, to figure out what to do next. Over the next few days, I watched him more closely, pretending that I was still in the dark about his affair. Every time he smiled at me or tried to talk about something mundane, I felt a pang of betrayal. I was living with a man who wasn't who I thought he was. The turning point came a week later. I couldn't keep pretending. One night after dinner, I sat him down. My heart was racing, but I knew I had to confront him. "I know about Rachel," I said, my voice trembling but firm. He froze. For a moment, he didn't say anything, and then he started with the denials. "It's not what you think," he said, his face pale. "It was just a mistake, a one-time thing." I shook my head, holding back tears. "Don't lie to me. I saw the messages. I know it's been going on for months, and I know you've been telling Mike about it too." The look on his face was one of shock, guilt, and panic. He tried to defend himself, to justify his actions, but nothing he said could undo the damage. The betrayal was too deep. I told him I needed space, and that night, I packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. In the days that followed, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, disbelief. I couldn't believe that the man I had trusted with my heart could betray me so completely. I had given him everything, and in return, he had made a mockery of our marriage. But even as I felt my world shattering, a strange strength started to build inside me. I realized that I didn't have to be a victim. I didn't have to let his betrayal define me. I took time to process everything, to grieve the loss of the relationship I thought I had. And then slowly but surely, I began to reclaim my life. I filed for divorce, and although it wasn't easy, it was the right decision. I wasn't going to stay in a marriage where trust had been so thoroughly broken. As for him, he tried to apologize, to make amends, but it was too late. I couldn't forget what he had done, and I couldn't forgive the way he had laughed about it with his friend. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't recognize. Months later, as I looked back on everything, I realized that his betrayal had taught me something important about myself. I had always been strong, but this experience had forced me to tap into a strength I didn't know I had. I had faced heartbreak, betrayal, and humiliation, but I had survived. More than that, I had come out the other side stronger, more self-assured, and more determined to live life on my own terms. The romance and passion that I had once thought were the foundation of our relationship had turned out to be fragile, built on lies. But now, I was free to find something real, something built on trust and respect. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I deserved better. And one day, I would find it. As for him, I don't know what became of his relationship with Rachel or his friendship with Mike, but I do know that I no longer care. He made his choices, and I made mine. I chose to walk away from a life of deceit and pain and toward a future filled with hope and possibilities.